I just want to preface this video by saying that there are going to be no major DLC spoilers in this video. There's going to be some DLC gameplay, but it's pretty much only for like the first 10 to like 20 minutes of the DLC. I'm not even going to show off any boss gameplay, no story spoilers, nothing like that at all. But yeah, we're finally back to making some Lies of P content because NeoWiz randomly decided to shadow drop their long-awaited DLC with like next to no marketing at one of the worst times possible. So yeah, definitely was a very questionable decision, but for today we are going to talk about the new weapons that have been dropped. Now I'm just going to specifically talk about the special weapons and the boss weapons. I'm not going to talk about the weapons that can be split up into different parts and have different combinations, because I'll probably save that one for a different video, because there are some weapons that can be customized that have like a really good handle but a pretty mediocre blade and vice versa, and something like that's kind of really hard to rank. So when I talk about those weapons, it'll be under a different video where I talk about like really good combinations. And then I can go ahead and cover things like Legion arms and amulets, so definitely do subscribe for that. But yeah, these special weapons and boss weapons are honestly all really good. Unfortunately, there are only 4 of them, and 2 of them you get off a boss. So technically there's only 2 boss weapons in this DLC. So it's not going to be a long video, but I do have plenty of thoughts. And I definitely think all of them are really fun to use. So definitely do save up on your Dark Moonstones, because you can't go wrong with a single one of these. And they kind of all require somewhat similar builds, because they're either all going to be like technique or motivity based. But yeah, that means there is still no advanced boss weapons in the game at all. Now, starting off at the bottom, we are going to talk about the Royal Horn Bow. Now, despite this getting at the bottom of the DLC special weapons list, it's still going to get into the A tier because it is extremely useful for most builds. It's going to be one of the most unique weapons in the game because it's a bow. Therefore, you're going to have projectile attacks that don't really consume anything, like no items, no Fable, no Legion, which this is pretty much the only instance of this happening. There definitely is a severe lack of projectile options in this game, and the fact that we can just have one for free is honestly insane. It means that you can pick up enemies at a distance, kite them in one at a time, and do it at relatively quick speeds. Now, obviously this is not going to be without any downsides. There are a lot that do come alongside this bow. The number one thing is going to be its damage. It's not going to be that primary based option that you can carry around. The DPS is just not there. It gets outdamaged by pretty much every other weapon in the game. It also does consume a lot of stamina as well. Like you just shoot it like 3 or 4 times and almost your entire stamina bar is gone. Also, some parts throughout the light attack combo, like the 3rd or 4th attack, you get stuck in this like 3 bow and arrow shot, which is like a longer animation. So yeah, for the most part against bosses, it's pretty much useless, especially with how aggressive these enemies tend to be. Now, you can still very much make it work like a regular weapon because you can still block with it. You can still break enemies' guards with it. You can still get fatal attacks as well. It's just going to do all those things just worse. Like the blocking is worse, the damage is worse. Even the durability is some of the lowest in the game. Also, the damage fall off is horrendous. So if you do want to snipe enemies at a further distance, you're going to have to use those perfectly timed charged heavy attacks. But there are 2 reasons why I have this thing into the A tier. Number 1 is going to be its weight. It only weighs 7.4 units, which is the lightest out of all the special weapons in the game. So therefore, there is practically no reason why you shouldn't just have this sitting in your back pocket. If you're running like a quality build or a technique build, just leave the bow in the back pocket and switch to it when you need to like pick up enemies at a distance. You want to get like a one-on-one fight, do a bit of chip damage. It is just so good to have. And the second reason is that it does amazing Fable charge buildup. So it just perfectly complements every single weapon as like a nice secondary option. Now, speaking of the Fable charges, I didn't really get to talk about the Fable arts that the bow does have, and that's because they're kind of just mediocre for the most part. You do get a Fable art in Dodge Shot, which has like this nice retreating animation and can do like a decently damaging attack, but it does consume 3 whole slots and it's just not really worth it. And you do also get Patient Shot, which Patient Shot is like a one single attack that can do amazing damage, and you can like fully charge it if you hold on to it for like 5 seconds, and it could do just as much damage as almost any other Fable art in the game. So if you do have like a longer opening and if you want to hit like an enemy that has like lots of health and they're unaware, you could potentially use something like this, but it still is very niche. Number 3, we have the Death's Talon, which is probably my favorite weapon to come out of this DLC. It is another technique-based weapon, and these things can have ridiculously high amounts of DPS. It is just insane. especially because it actually gets some critical rate damage as well. Which if you don't know, there are certain weapons in the game that do come with like critical damage. For instance, the Trident of the Covenant, this gets a critical rate of 30. Therefore, we have like a 30% chance of landing a critical hit, which is pretty much just double damage. But the Death Talon actually gets 40% critical rate. And these things swing incredibly fast. And combined with the high chances of landing a critical hit, you can output amazing damage. Slap on things like the Assassin's Amulets, the critical hit grindstone, and you can pretty much make it that almost every single attack results in a critical hit. And that already paired with its decent damage makes it be an absolute boss melting machine sometimes. And the thing is, the moveset is also really good to complement. Light attacks are pretty quick, the uncharged heavy attacks are pretty good at stun locking, the running heavy attacks are just amazing. Any single time you want to like lead off an engagement, just use the running heavy attacks. It is very reminiscent of the Beast Claws from Bloodborne. And the thing is, quicker weapons are just preferred in this game due to just like the lack of hyper armor, and a lot of bosses just give you very short openings, especially in the DLC, and things like the Death Talons can definitely put in a lot of work and make it less risky in some areas. And even its Fable arts complement the weapon perfectly as well, the best one being Rampage. This actually buffs the weapon to make it swing faster and get a slightly different moveset. And then like the uncharged heavy attacks do this like really nice spin to win that covers like a nice little AoE, and you can spam this the entire time or combo it in from the light attacks to just make it do even more DPS. The charged heavy attacks lunge in really far too. And then you have your other Fable art in Link Slash, which is like some just nice high damaging just multi-hit combo. It's always nice to just have like one hard hitting combo just available to you. So the way that I'm talking about it, it should be an S tier. But unfortunately, there are going to be some major downsides. The number one being the durability. This gets the worst durability out of all the special weapons in the game at only 60. So pretty much for every single boss fight, you're going to have to spend some time to repair this thing, which can be pretty tedious. It also does have some pretty poor reach. Even though it can lunge in pretty far to compensate, there are some times where you notice you just end up whiffing. But in return, with its pretty poor reach, it does get some relatively lower weight. I believe it's the third lightest out of all the special weapons in the game. And also, virtue of it by being really light, it gets horrendous poise damage and stagger damage. Like it takes a long time to be able to stagger an enemy. It also is going to get really bad blocking too. Now getting into the S tier at number 2, we have the Pale Knight, which this is like a mainly motivity based weapon, but you can use this very well with a quality based build as well. Now it does fall under a greatsword type, so it's not going to have like the fastest moveset, but it's not going to be that slow either, and it is going to hit relatively hard per hit and actually do some decent stagger damage. Doesn't have like the most range by any means, nor does it actually weigh that much, but it is going to have some decent Fable charge and be pretty good at blocking as well. But the thing that makes this an S tier is going to be its moveset. This weapon is kind of more like a gun blade because it does actually incorporate some like shooting attacks. The light attacks are pretty much nothing but horizontal swipes, which is honestly amazing because it makes it really good for crowd control and hitting multiple enemies. But the heavy attacks turn it into a gun, or kind of more like a shotgun. It's like a tiny little bit of range. And the damage or the DPS of these heavy attacks isn't going to be anything amazing. But the things that make them really good is going to be the speeds, the combo potential, and the range. Every single time you use like an uncharged heavy attack or like a running heavy attack and it fires off the weapon, it does this like little retreating animation, which doesn't make you retreat that far, but it can be far enough to outspace a lot of enemy attacks. And then when you go ahead and use the follow-up heavy attack, you just lunge right back in towards them very quickly. And the fact that it can lunge in very far as well means that after you get like a stance break, you have a nice follow-up option. And then the combo potential with the light attacks are just insane. The light attack into heavy attack is just seamless and really good damage. If you do 2 light attacks and go into a charged heavy attack, it is so incredibly fast. Like this right here, this is 2 light attacks and 1 charged heavy. Look how fast that charged heavy comes out. But it doesn't just stop there, because the Fable arts also do an amazing job at complementing the weapon. The first one being Strengthen Bullets. For 2 Fable charges, it does buff the weapon to make the gun portion of the weapon just do more damage. So pretty much all those heavy attacks just get an added boost to your damage. But one thing I also didn't mention is that the critical attacks also result in this gun shooting effect. So this particular skill can also boost the damage of the fatal attack. The movement of the weapon is just amazing. The speeds are really good too, but it might just be the DPS. But with this thing, it can bring it in line with some of the best out there. And then you have your other Fable art in full salvo. For 3 charges, it just does this really big shotgun damaging attack attack that does go like a little bit further and shoot out a bit wider than like your heavy attack does. So it does have some more crowd control potential and some more like projectile option. And this thing is pretty quick. You get hyper armor. It does like amazing damage, amazing stagger damage. And yes, if you do use the strengthened bullet skill first, it actually will buff the damage of the full salvo by like roughly 50% the amount. So if you do have like 5 Fable charges, you can just use one and it's comboed into the other and just do ridiculous damage. But I think the real best weapon to come out of the DLC is going to go to the MONAD'S Rose Sword. This thing is just utterly ridiculous. Like, it's probably not going to be as complete as a weapon as the Pale Knight is, but there are just some things about it that just make it completely broken and arguably the best weapon in the entire game. Starting off with is its scalings. It gets a B scaling in both motility and technique. That means at higher levels, it can do really high damage. The light attacks are like some relatively quick slashing attacks. I say relatively quick because it does like result in like this spinning attack every single time, which might make it slow it down a little bit. But one thing it does really well is its lunge. Like, these light attacks lunge in really far and actually have a really wide hitbox as well, which tend to be like one of the downsides when it comes to the Lies of P weapons. They don't really tend to lunge as far or like swing as far as well. But yeah, this is not the case with the Rose Sword. But I think the real potential comes in with its heavy attacks. The heavy attacks also lunge in really far. They're not that slow either. And it can also offer some nice stun lock potential. A combo that I found a lot of success with was a light attack into uncharged heavy attack. This can actually do very well. And in terms of the charged heavy attacks, these are also just really good. It does this like nice little double swiping attack, covers some nice reach. But if you do end up getting the stagger and go for a fatal attack, the fatal attack damage is like insane as well. And if you did want a comparison, the Pale Knight Sword charged heavy attack combo into a critical attack does a lot less damage than a charged heavy attack combo into fatal attack of the Rose Sword. Like, that's how much damage it can output by being a lighter weapon that's faster as well. That's not going to obviously be as good as blocking because it is going to be a lighter weapon, but it's not that much worse. But the real reasons why I do consider it to be the best weapon in the game is going to be because of its Fable Arts. One of the Fable Arts does have this like nice charging attack that you can result in like this 3-hit combo, which can be pretty fun to use. I think it's decent at like hitting multiple enemies or closing in the gap, but using it 3 times, I don't really think it's worth the Fable charge. But her other Fable Art by the name of the Rose is probably the most broken thing to come out of this DLC. For also 3 Fable charges, it pretty much turns you like invisible and does like this insane flurrying attack. Like, I don't even know how to describe this shit. Now, the casting animation might be a little bit long, but you do get a lot of hyper armor and you can like track so far towards the enemy to do like the insane attack. And yeah, the damage is just ridiculous. Like, it has to be the hardest hitting Fable Art in the entire game. Like, this thing is ridiculous. It does insane stagger damage as well. It has like a pretty decently wide hitbox too, so you actually can hit multiple enemies. Like, this shit is just absurd. Like, I can see why someone might consider this to be like the best weapon in the entire game purely just based on this one attack alone. Now, I probably don't consider it to be the best weapon in the entire game because there is going to be the downside of one, having to go to 3 Fable charges just to be able to use it. And it also consumes a lot of durability, which seems like it's a common theme with a lot of these DLC weapons. But yeah, the weapon as a whole is still amazing. It gets high damage, it gets good scalings, you get good moveset potential, you get pretty good speeds, and you get like a broken Fable Art. Like, it doesn't really get much better than this. Okay, that is us pretty much now done and completed. As always, let me know what your opinions are down in the comments below. I do plan to make some more Lies of P videos in these coming days, alongside the Night Rain content as well, obviously. So if you do want to see more of this type of content, please do like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next. See ya!